SIR, we received a call about a trespasser refusing to leave HOA property. The deputy's hand rests near his belt, eyes scanning me like I might bolt any second. I'm standing on the dock my grandfather built in 1946, wrench still in my hand from tightening the planks he set into this Montana lake bed before I was even born. Two sheriff cruisers sit in my driveway, red and blue lights strobing across the water like I've barricaded myself inside the cabin. Behind them, a white luxury SUV idles with its engine purring expensive confidence. A woman leans against it, arms folded, watching this play out like she choreographed every second. "Are you Marcus Bennett?" the deputy asks. I set the wrench down slowly. "That's me. You want ID? Sure, but what you actually need is a deed." I walk past both deputies toward my cabin, grab the weathered folder from the porch rail, and hand it over. Page 3. Page 4, if you want the original survey from 46. The deputy opens it, eyebrows pulling together almost instantly. His partner leans in, scanning legal descriptions that have been on file in Flathead County for 78 years. Land patents. Recorded twice. The shoreline, the dock, 10 feet into the water, all unmistakably mine. The deputies exchange looks, not tense, embarrassed. "Mr. Bennett," the first deputy says carefully, "everything appears valid. This is clearly your property." The woman steps forward, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "That can't be right." The HOA has jurisdiction over all lakeside structures. "No, ma'am," the deputy cuts her off. "You don't. You can regulate members. Mr. Bennett isn't one." He hands me back the folder. "Sorry for the inconvenience. No citations, no warnings, just an ending as quick as it deserves." But the woman doesn't leave. She stares at me like I personally unplugged her power source, jaw clenched so hard I can hear her teeth grind. "You're making a mistake," she says, not loud enough for the deputies to hear. "This dock is subject to review. You can't just move back here and do whatever you want." I meet her gaze, calm, even. "Ma'am, this dock's been in my family longer than you've been alive, and you know it." Her nostrils flare. "We'll see about that." She turns sharply and climbs into her SUV. The door slams. Dust spirals behind her like a storm warning as she speeds away. The question presses into my mind as I pick up my wrench. If she knew the dock wasn't hers, why did she call the police anyway? The answer comes the next morning, and it's not subtle. I stepped outside 3 weeks ago expecting peace. I'd returned to Crystal Lake, Montana, in early May 2024, after inheriting my grandfather's cabin, the one he built when he came home from the war, the one where I'd spent every childhood summer learning to fish off the dock he constructed with his own hands. The bolt I was tightening had just started to bite into the damp grain of the dock plank when I heard gravel crunch under tires. Multiple sets. Not the soft roll of tourists or neighbors passing through. This was heavier, deliberate, the kind of arrival meant to send a message before anyone stepped out. I straightened, wiped my hands on my jeans, and saw two sheriff cruisers easing down my private drive, red and blue strobes flickering across the water. I'd only been back on Crystal Lake for 3 weeks, long enough to clear cedar debris from the gutters, repair the dock posts my grandfather set in 1946, and nearly forget I'd returned to a different Montana than the one I grew up visiting. But the sight of law enforcement pulling up like I'd barricaded myself in the cabin told me something wasn't just off. It was planned. Both cruisers stopped 10 feet from the lip of the dock. Doors opened. 2 deputies stepped out, hands resting near their belts, scanning like they'd been told I might bolt. And then I saw her, leaning against a white luxury crossover parked behind them, arms folded, pastel sweater tied around her shoulders like a country club sash. I didn't know her name yet, but her expression told me everything, the kind of smug confidence people wear when they think the law is an accessory. The taller deputy cleared his throat. "Sir, we received a call about a trespasser refusing to leave HOA property." His eyes shifted to the woman for half a second, then back to me. "Are you Marcus Bennett?" I almost laughed at how rehearsed it sounded, But the deputies weren't the enemy here. They were being used. I set the wrench down and stood up straight. "That's me." "Do you have identification?" he asked. Behind him, the woman's voice rose like she'd been waiting for her cue. "Officers, he's been working on a dock that does not belong to him. The shoreline is under HOA jurisdiction. He refused multiple notices to vacate." I met the deputy's gaze. "You want ID?" "Sure. But what you actually need is a deed." I walked past them toward my cabin's porch, grabbed the weathered folder I'd placed on the rail earlier that morning, and handed it to the deputy. "Page 3, I said. "And page 4 if you want the original survey." He opened it, his brows pulled together almost instantly. The second deputy leaned in, scanning the legal descriptions that had been on file in Flathead County for almost 8 decades. Land patents issued to my grandfather right after he came back from the war. Recorded twice, once in 46 and again in 72 when he rebuilt the North Posts after ice breakup. The shoreline, the dock, and 10 feet into the water were all unmistakably mine. The deputies exchanged looks. Not tense. Embarrassed. "Mr. Bennett," the first deputy said, "everything appears valid. This is clearly your property." The woman stepped forward, face tightening. "That can't be right. The HOA has jurisdiction over all lakeside structures." "No, ma'am," the deputy cut her off. "You don't. You can regulate members, and Mr. Bennett isn't one. Also, your complaint stated this shoreline was HOA owned. It's not." Her jaw clenched so hard I thought I heard her teeth grind. Well, he still refused notices. "Notices don't override a deed," the deputy said. "You're free to contact civil court, but this isn't a criminal matter, and it certainly isn't trespassing." I stayed silent. I didn't need to add anything. The truth was right there in black ink and county stamps. After a beat, the deputies handed me back the folder. "Sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Bennett. We'll clear the call." They turned and walked back to their cruisers. No citations, no warnings, no follow-up questions, just an ending as quick and anticlimactic as the whole encounter deserved. The woman, however, didn't leave immediately. She stared at me like I'd personally unplugged her power source. "You're making a mistake," she said under her breath, not loud enough for the deputies to hear. "This dock is subject to review. You can't just move back here and do whatever you want." I held her gaze, calm even. "Ma'am, this dock's been in my family longer than you've been alive, and you know it." Her nostrils flared. "We'll see about that." She turned sharply, heels stabbing gravel, and slipped into her crossover. The door slammed. A moment later, she sped up the drive, dust spiraling behind her like a storm warning. The cruisers pulled out after her, leaving me alone on the quiet dock again, the lake reflecting nothing but sky and the fading ripple from their departure. I picked up my wrench, but my hand hovered above the plank instead of tightening the bolt. My heart wasn't racing, just working harder than usual, preparing for a fight I hadn't planned on having today. The question pressed itself into my mind, steady and unwelcome. If she knew the dock wasn't hers, why did she call the police anyway? The answer came the next morning, and it wasn't subtle. I stepped outside with a mug of black coffee and nearly dropped it. 3 sheets of paper were nailed directly into my wooden gate, angled like someone had stood back afterward to admire their handiwork. The first was stamped, "Unsafe structure, immediate attention required," citing my dock as a hazard to the community. The second was an invoice, $7,200 in outstanding dock dues. The third was a summons demanding I appear before the Crystal Lake Property Standards Board next Thursday. All 3 carried the HOA crest. None carried legal authority. I tore one free and felt the small puncture holes left in the wood. Fresh, 5 minutes old, maybe. The air still carried the faint tang of paper, dust, and the sharp metallic scent left by the staple gun. Whoever delivered these was close. Watching. I scanned the road, saw nothing but a receding dust trail. I took all 3 papers into the cabin, laid them across the table, and felt my frustration rise into something sharper. Yesterday, they tried to criminalize me by calling the sheriff. Today, they doubled down with paperwork dressed up as law. This wasn't confusion, it was strategy. Around noon, the strategy escalated. A white SUV rolled up my drive, stopping short of the porch. 3 people stepped out, matching windbreakers, clipboards in hand, identical self-importance. The man in the lead approached first. "Mr. Bennett, we're with the HOA Environmental Standards Committee. We're here to inspect your septic system and shoreline compliance." I stared at him. "No, you're not." He blinked, thrown off his script. "Sir, refusal to comply will result in immediate fines and potential enforcement action. You don't have enforcement authority," I said flatly. "You're not county, state, or federal. You're volunteers with clipboards." The woman beside him crossed her arms. "You're being unnecessarily hostile. We're just doing our job. Your job ends at property lines you don't own," I said. The lead inspector lifted his phone and began filming. Threatening behavior noted, he narrated, dramatically. "Subject refusing safety inspection. I didn't raise my voice. Leave my property. Do it now." He kept recording, waiting for me to slip into anger to give him something they could twist. Instead, I opened the cabin door and counted loud enough for the phone to capture it. 60 seconds, then I called the sheriff for trespass. For the first time, real uncertainty flickered in his eyes. The 3 of them huddled, whispering urgently, then retreated without argument. The SUV kicked gravel as it retreated down the drive. I watched them go, adrenaline buzzing under my skin. This wasn't random harassment. Someone inside that HOA had a plan and a reason. I took photos of the gate notices and sent them to the sheriff, attaching a brief statement requesting they document the attempted inspection. Not that I expected quick action, but paper trails matter, especially when your opponent is drowning you in them. By late afternoon, I was turning theories over in my head, none of them good. I tried to distract myself with dock repairs, but even the sound of the drill felt impatient, like the lake itself was waiting for my next move. Every screw I tightened, every board I replaced, reminded me how little any of this should have been a problem. I was tightening the last plank when I heard a notification ping from my phone inside the cabin. The sound was sharp, too sharp. Not a text, not email. It was the alert tone I'd set for motion detection near the gate. I checked the feed. A figure stood at the end of my driveway, just outside the property line, holding a stack of fresh paper and examining my mailbox like he was considering whether to open it. I zoomed in. It wasn't the woman. It wasn't one of the inspectors. It was a man in a sharp suit, polished shoes, the kind of man who saw a lake community as a revenue stream rather than a home. He looked at the mailbox again, then up toward the cabin, straight into the camera. He smirked, folded the papers under his arm, and walked back up the road. I replayed the footage twice. He wasn't delivering anything. He was checking something, confirming something. But what? The violation notices, the fines, the surprise inspection. This man appearing at the edge of my land like a surveyor staking a claim. The pattern was no longer subtle. They were treating my shoreline like it was already theirs. A cold, steady anger settled into my spine, the kind that didn't spark or flare, but rooted deep and refused to move. I snapped photos of everything, printed the gate notices, starred the motion footage, and compiled it all into a folder. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to waste time with guesses. Tomorrow came faster than sleep ever could. I was up before sunrise, folder in hand, driving toward town with the kind of focus that used to settle in my gut before high-pressure dam inspections back when I worked as a civil engineer. Crystal Lake faded behind me as I headed toward Kalispell, where the only attorney I trusted, even slightly, kept her office, Jennifer Walsh, lake rights specialist. Known among old-timers as the woman you call when someone tries stealing your shoreline. I walked into her office at 8:03 a.m. She was already behind her desk, sleeves rolled, paperwork scattered like she'd been fighting a war since dawn. She looked up. "Marcus, you don't usually show up unless something's gone wrong." I set the folder on her desk. "Define wrong." She opened it, flipping through the violation notices, photos of my gate, timestamps from my trail cams. Her eyebrows lowered the further she read. When she reached the HOA summons, she sat back in her chair. "You inherited that cabin 3 weeks ago," she said. "And they've already escalated to false fines and unauthorized inspections." I nodded. "Last night, some guy in an expensive suit came to the edge of my property. Didn't drop anything off, just looked around like he was checking the perimeter." A humorless sound escaped her, almost a laugh. "Of course he did. You're the last unclaimed section on the north shoreline." I leaned forward. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jennifer stood, walked to a tall file cabinet, and pulled out a map. She spread it across the table, Crystal Lake divided into parcels shaded in colors. She tapped the largest blue shape hugging the lower shoreline. "This is everything the HOA claims authority over. Members only." Then she tapped the northern curve my land and 3 older cabins still owned by families who predated the HOA. These parcels are the holdouts. The HOA has been trying to consolidate lake governance for years. Most new owners joined out of ignorance. "But your land?" She paused. "It blocks complete control." "So they're trying to annex my shoreline," I said. "Trying is generous," she replied. "They're manufacturing violations to force you into compliance. They can't take your land outright, but they can exhaust you financially, psychologically, until you either join or sell." A cold knot settled under my ribs. "Why the urgency?" Jennifer hesitated. "I've heard rumors the HOA president promised a developer expanded lake rights for a resort proposal. If she can claim the entire shoreline is under HOA stewardship, she gets approval leverage. But without your parcel, the plan falls apart." "So, this isn't personal," I said. "It's both," she said. "She doesn't like losing, especially not to someone who shows up with a valid deed." She flipped over one of the gate notices. "This," she tapped the $7,200 fine, "is meaningless. The HOA can't impose dues on non-members. And the inspection? Illegal. Only county zoning can inspect septic systems." I felt some tension loosen, then immediately tighten again. "So, what's my next move?" Jennifer's eyes sharpened. "Document everything. Every visit. Every piece of paper. Every camera clip. They're not just overreaching, they're building a narrative. You counter that by building evidence." She handed the folder back. "And you install more cameras." "I already did," I said. "Good, because if they're escalating this early, sabotage usually comes next." I almost asked what she meant, then remembered the orange X someone painted on a neighbor's dock last summer when he refused to pay an HOA beautification levy. His dock mysteriously collapsed a week later. "How far are they willing to go?" I asked. Jennifer exhaled slowly. "The president is the public face, but there's a treasurer, sharp suit, quiet moves. Who's the real strategist? He doesn't take risks without an endgame, and that makes him dangerous in a very quiet way." I absorbed her words. Jennifer leaned forward, tone firm. "Marcus, you have something they need. Land with legitimacy. They can't buy legitimacy. They can only fabricate pressure until you break. Don't give them an inch." I nodded. "I won't. But I'd like to know what exactly they think they're playing with." Jennifer pulled a different file from her drawer. "This is everything I've collected about Crystal Lake HOA attempts over the past 5 years. Unauthorized filings, zoning disputes, selective enforcement, hidden correspondence. Nothing criminal yet, but there's a pattern." She flipped open the file. The first page showed a summary. "Pattern of coercion through administrative pressure." The second page listed names owners who'd been fined into submission or run out. The third page, a crude map the HOA submitted in 2019 trying to redraw shoreline boundaries. My stomach tightened. The altered boundary line skimmed right across my grandfather's dock. I looked at Jennifer. "This is forgery." "It's not filed legally," she said. "But it's the document they wave at newcomers to make them think the HOA owns more than it does." "So they know it isn't valid," I said. "Oh, absolutely. But showing a fake map is easier than explaining the law. And most people don't question authority when it arrives with a clipboard." I sat back. "So when the sheriff shut her down yesterday, she didn't lose the fight. She lost camouflage." Jennifer nodded. "Exactly. Now they'll push harder. Expect more notices, more confrontations. What about counterattacking? I asked. She tapped my folder. You're doing it right now, one step at a time. But first, you catch them in the act. I frowned. Meaning? Install cameras on the dock posts, she said. They'll come for that next. And when they do, we'll have leverage. I stood to leave, folder under my arm. I appreciate this, Jennifer. One more thing, she said before I reached the door. The treasurer watches patterns. Don't give him one. Act unpredictable. Stay steady. Document quietly. Let them believe you're overwhelmed. Why? So they don't realize you're building a case until it's too late. I walked out of the office with a new clarity, sharper, colder than frustration. I wasn't imagining the pressure. I wasn't overreacting. I was standing on strategically valuable land, and the HOA leadership wanted it under their banner, whatever the cost. As I stepped into the sunlight and headed back toward my truck, my phone buzzed. Motion alert from the trail cam near my boathouse. A figure had walked right up to my gate, but this time I could see her clearly in daylight. She wore a crimson-red blazer that fit like it had been tailored specifically for her frame, the fabric catching the morning sun with an almost aggressive brightness. The blazer hung open just enough to reveal a black silk blouse beneath cut in a deep V that was professional enough to maintain authority but designed to command attention. Her pencil skirt matched the blazer perfectly, fitted with a subtle slit that suggested confidence bordering on calculation. Red heels clicked sharply against the gravel as she moved. Her auburn hair fell in perfect waves just past her shoulders, styled with the kind of precision that required daily effort. And her lips painted a glossy red that matched her blazer, and heels exactly were set in a hard line as she lifted her phone. She wasn't holding papers this time, she was taking pictures. The escalation had already begun, and the cameras were rolling. By the time I pulled into my driveway, she was gone, but fresh boot prints tracked across the gravel. Too small to be the man in the suit, too deliberate to be coincidence. I checked the trail cam footage again. She'd taken photos of my gate, mailbox, and even the corner post of the dock path. That wasn't documentation, that was reconnaissance. I walked straight to the dock, scanning for anything out of place. At first, nothing jumped out. Then I noticed the rope cleats securing the walkway weren't aligned. The left rope sagged at an unnatural angle, barely holding tension. I leaned over the edge and saw it. Someone had loosened the knot cleanly, precisely. Not frayed, untied. A surge of cold anger pushed through my chest. This wasn't a warning. This was preparation. I crouched to retie the rope when the second discovery hit me harder. On the underside of the boathouse wall, barely visible unless you knelt and angled your head under the dock's edge, a bright orange X glowed against the pale wood. Spray paint. Target marking. Someone had tagged my structures for removal or destruction. I stood up slowly, pulse thudding, and opened the trail cam feed again. Midnight footage. Grainy, but clear enough. A tall figure moving down the planks with controlled steps, careful not to make noise. He glanced up once, and even in low light, his face was unmistakable. The man in the suit from yesterday. He checked the dock posts, ran his fingers along the beams like a contractor surveying weak points, then pulled a small can from his pocket and sprayed the underside of the boathouse wall with an X. Afterward, he reached up toward one of the cameras until he noticed the blinking LED. He jerked back, hesitated, then left the way he came, the tension in his shoulders visible even through the pixelation. I replayed it twice, jaw tightening. There was no misinterpretation, no possible miscommunication. This man was cataloging the structure, marking it, preparing something sabotage most likely. They needed my dock gone so they could claim it was unsafe, then push the county to condemn it, or worse, force emergency removal. I forwarded the clip to Jennifer with a single line. "You warned me." Her response came 30 seconds later. "Get to the county land office now." I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Kalispell. The county building was quiet. Only one office light glowed. Clara, the clerk who'd processed my inheritance paperwork, looked up as I entered. "Marcus, you look like someone set your engine on fire." "Close," I said. I pulled out my phone and played the footage. She leaned in, face tightening. "That's Jonathan Crane. What the hell is he doing on your dock at night?" "You tell me," I said. "Your records show the HOA filed something about shoreline review last spring. I need to know what they actually submitted." Clara exhaled sharply. "Follow me." She led me into the back archive room metal cabinets humming with their own tired history. She rifled through a drawer labeled HOA Filings, Crystal Lake, then withdrew a thin folder, far thinner than it should have been. "This is all they submitted," she said, "but Marcus, none of this is legal." She laid out the documents. The so-called shoreline jurisdiction map was a joke. No surveyor stamp, no county notary, no recorded parcel boundaries. The borders were drawn by hand by someone who didn't think anyone would ever look closely. The map claimed the entire north shoreline, including my dock, fell under HOA oversight. I stared at it, forcing myself to stay measured. "This isn't even amateur fraud. It's lazy." "That's because it wasn't intended for county use," Clara said. "It was intended to confuse homeowners, to build the appearance of authority, and that's enough to intimidate most people. Until someone checks the records," I said quietly. Clara nodded, which they clearly assumed you wouldn't. I held the fake map up beside my grandfather's official survey. The contrast was stark. One, stamped, precise, legally binding. The other, a child's sketch over stolen land. "Print me a copy," I said. Actually, 3. As she printed, she hesitated. "Marcus, you realize what this means, right? They don't have any legitimate claim. They're bluffing. And based on what you just showed me, they're escalating because they know you're the one parcel they can't bully into compliance." "Why mark my boathouse?" I asked. Clara's expression hardened. "Because once a structure is deemed dangerous, the county can order emergency removal. If an anonymous complaint comes in, it can happen fast." My jaw set. The stakes had changed. This wasn't petty fines anymore. This was a coordinated attempt to erase my grandfather's legacy and my legal barrier to their lake expansion plans. I folded the fake map and tucked it into my folder. "Thanks, Clara." "Be careful," she said. "They're not acting like people who expect resistance." On my drive home, the lake shimmered through gaps in the trees. And for the first time, it didn't look peaceful. It looked contested. The shoreline that had belonged to my family since the 1940s was now a battlefield drawn in forged lines and spray paint. When I pulled into my driveway and stepped out of the truck, the dock creaked softly in the distance, a reminder of what was at stake. I tightened every camera angle before heading inside. Then, before shutting off the lights, I opened the fake map one more time. What else are they hiding? If this is the document they were willing to show, the question wasn't what they'd do next, it was what they'd already done. And this time, the anger wasn't cold. It was focused. Because now I had evidence, and evidence had weight. But evidence alone doesn't stop people like her, or Jonathan Crane. It only makes them more desperate. By the next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, trail cam pings, comments on footage I'd backed up, neighbors sending quiet messages of support or caution. The community was watching, even if they weren't ready to step into the crossfire. I went outside to inspect the dock with fresh eyes, looking for anything I might have missed. That's when I saw the new detail. Subtle, but unmistakable. The bolts at the base of the walkway had fresh tool marks. Not from me. Someone had tested their play in the night, likely checking how much force it would take to loosen the entire structure. This wasn't random vandalism. This was preparation for a collapse. I photographed each bolt, noting the scratch direction, then tightened them until the metal groaned. If they wanted to push me into an emergency demolition order, they'd have to work harder. I spent the next hour reinforcing the dock the way my grandfather taught me, bracing the underside beams, checking post stability, inspecting the flotation drums. Every improvement was both practical and symbolic. This wasn't just a structure, it was a statement. You won't win. No new complaints arrived, no inspectors, no sabotage, just silence, which meant only one thing. The HOA was planning its next move behind closed doors. And whatever it was, it wouldn't be petty or small. Not anymore. That night, before locking up, I reviewed my evidence pile one more time. Notices, videos, photos, zoning findings, Jennifer's research notes. Patterns stared back at me like a blueprint for collapse. They'd pushed, lied, forged, tampered, and threatened. And somewhere in those documents was the crack in their foundation. The one that would bring the whole operation down. I closed the binder. The real storm was close, closer than they realized, and when it broke, I was going to be ready. Not just to defend my land, but to end this fight on my terms. 2 mornings after the zoning inspection, Jennifer called before sunrise. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Marcus, I found something," she said, "and you're going to want to sit down." I didn't sit. I braced a hand against the counter. "Tell me, you know that shoreline parcel the HOA keeps claiming? The one she and Jonathan Crane say gives them authority over your dock?" "Yeah." "It isn't owned by the HOA," she said. "It's owned by a dormant LLC that hasn't paid property taxes in 3 years. For a second, the kitchen went quiet around me. "Run that back," I said. "It's not HOA property. It's not common land. It's not protected. It's not even legally maintained." And because of the unpaid taxes, she exhaled, letting the punchline hit, "It's going to public auction next month." I leaned back, stunned but not confused. Everything suddenly made sense. The fake map, the pressure, the desperation. They'd been enforcing authority over land they didn't even own. Land that was slipping through their fingers because they refused to pay taxes on it. "What does the LLC own exactly?" I asked. She flipped through papers audibly. A 40-foot shoreline strip, the access road leading to the so-called community dock, and the dock itself. I blinked. The dock they said I was trespassing on? Yes. And the road they keep telling people is HOA maintained? It isn't. It belongs to this LLC, which is basically a shell corporation tied to someone on the HOA board. "Jonathan Crane," I said. "Almost certainly. But here's the kicker. The owed taxes total $14,800. I opened the cabinet where I kept my emergency savings binder. $16,200. All the money I'd saved for cabin repairs, for the roof, for winterizing." She continued, "If you purchase it at auction, you'll own the entire strip, the dock, the access road, everything they've been weaponizing." I let out a slow breath. "Do they know it's heading for auction?" "No," she said. "Most people don't monitor delinquent tax rolls, but once the notice is published, they will. And they'll try to stop it. Fake filings, emergency injunctions, bankruptcy tactics, expect frantic moves." I looked out at the lake, quiet, still, like it was holding its breath with me. "Marcus," she said, lowering her voice, "if you want to end this, this is how. Buy the land they built their entire lie on. I'm listening. We need to prepare early. Visit the county treasurer, confirm the auction date, get your registration paperwork, and do not let the HOA catch wind of this until the moment the bidding starts." "What about the LLC owner?" I asked. "Anyone left to dispute the sale?" "It's inactive. No current address. No filings in years. They gave up on it probably because Crane thought he could hide it. They assumed no one would ever look." I grabbed my keys. "Meet me at the courthouse in 30 minutes. "Already in the car," she replied. "And Marcus?" "Yeah? You're closer to checkmate than you think." An hour later, Jennifer and I sat with the county treasurer, an older man named Reynolds, with reading glasses perched near the tip of his nose. He opened the delinquent records book and turned it around for me. "Parcel number 47 Newtons. Owner, North Shore Holdings, LLC. Status, delinquent. Eligible for public tax sale. Auction date, August 10th, 10 a.m. County Courthouse steps." Reynolds tapped the total balance due. You buy it. You pay this amount plus registration fees. After that, it's yours. No redemption period in this county. It's final. I nodded. What if someone files something to block the sale? Depends what they file, he said. But we've seen it all. Last-minute bankruptcies, emergency filings, flimsy claims. Judges weed out the garbage quickly. Jennifer leaned forward. And if the LLC files bankruptcy, would that stop the sale? Only if the filing is legitimate, he said. If it's fraudulent, it'll collapse under scrutiny. He stamped the page and slid a registration form across the desk. You fill this out, bring a cashier's check the morning of the auction, and if no one outbids you, that shoreline becomes yours. End of story. Not end of story, start of one. We left the courthouse, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't fear or anger. I felt momentum. Jennifer walked beside me, flipping through her notes. Now that we know the real battlefield, we prepare for their counterstrike, because when they realize what's happening, they'll panic. Let them come, I said. They've been swinging in the dark. I'm finally turning on the lights. She paused at her car. Keep your cameras running. Document everything. They might escalate aggressively before August 10th. I'm counting on it, I said. Back home, I sat on the dock, my grandfather's dock, and let the weight of the discovery settle. They didn't own the land. They weren't enforcing rules. They were bluffing. For years. And now that bluff had a price tag. $14,800. I could buy the land beneath their authority, their leverage, their weapon, their false jurisdiction. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from an unknown number. I played it. A man's voice low, forced calm, but fraying at the edges. Mr. Bennett, you're interfering with community operations. Stop digging into things that don't concern you. Last warning, it was Jonathan Crane, and he sounded scared. Good. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Jennifer. As I stood and looked across Crystal Lake, the reflection of my boathouse rippling faintly across the water, I felt something shift inside me. This fight wasn't just defense anymore. This was offense. And for the first time, I saw the ending. Not with them standing over me, but with them watching everything they built collapse under the weight of their own schemes. The dock creaked softly beneath my feet. In a month, it might legally be mine in every sense of the word. And the HOA? They'd never recover from what was coming. By the time the auction notice appeared publicly, barely a 2-sentence posting in the back corner of the county bulletin, the storm I'd been expecting finally broke. Not subtly, either. HOA panic has a smell. And it hit Crystal Lake like spilled gasoline. The first sign was the unmarked SUV parked halfway down my road the next morning, windows tinted, engine idling, someone inside watching my driveway. I raised my phone. The SUV rolled off instantly. Fast for a group that supposedly just wanted property compliance. 10 minutes later, my email dinged with a new message. Urgent OA board alert. Unauthorized claims concerning shoreline property. I opened it. A wall of legal-sounding nonsense claiming that individuals may be misinterpreting county notices and that community assets remain protected under HOA jurisdiction. It was a lie. A loud, nervous lie. And everyone on the mailing list knew it. By noon, 3 neighbors messaged me. What's going on? Why is she freaking out? Is it true the dock isn't theirs? I didn't answer yet. Not until I secured the land legally. That afternoon, I drove to the bank to convert my emergency savings to a cashier's check. $16,200. All the money I had. The teller eyed me carefully. You making a big purchase today? Something like that, I said. You'll see it on the news soon. The days leading up to August 10th were a mix of silent tension and open attempts at intimidation. Twice more, cars paused at the end of my driveway. Someone left a flyer under my truck wiper claiming the dock would be removed immediately due to community hazard. One night, motion lights triggered, but the person stayed in the shadows. But the closer they got, the more their desperation showed. On August 8th, Jennifer called with the tone of someone delivering both bad news and a loaded weapon. They filed an emergency injunction to stop the auction, she said. I laughed once. Humorless. Of course they did. And the judge denied it in 5 sentences. He called their documentation non-existent and their ownership claim unsupported and contradictory. I gripped the steering wheel. So the sale proceeds. Yes, she said. The HOA just suffered its first public defeat. Expect retaliation. It came the next morning in the form of a manila envelope taped to my gate. Cease and desist. Unlawful interference with community property. They accused me of attempting to illegally obtain common assets and threatened significant legal action. Jennifer's raid. Frame it? You'll want memorabilia. On the morning of August 10th, Crystal Lake felt different. Still, watching. I wore clean jeans, kept the cashier's check tucked into a leather folder, and drove to the county courthouse with Jennifer following behind me. When we turned onto Main Street, the crowd waiting on the courthouse steps made my stomach tighten. Not with fear, with clarity. People had shown up, residents, curious locals, investors, even a reporter holding a camera, and in the middle of them, standing like she owned the granite steps themselves, was the HOA president. Today, she wore the full outfit again, the crimson-red blazer fitted perfectly over the black silk V-neck blouse, the deep neckline catching eyes even from a distance. Her pencil skirt hugged her frame with that subtle slit, and her red heels clicked against the stone as she shifted her weight. Auburn waves fell perfectly over her shoulders despite the morning breeze, and those glossy red lips were pressed into a thin, hard line. Arms folded, posture rigid. Next to her, Jonathan Crane stood in an expensive suit, jaw clenched, eyes darting everywhere but mine. She didn't look triumphant. She looked cornered. The county clerk stepped out at exactly 10 a.m., carrying a clipboard and a portable microphone. Good morning, folks. We'll begin with Parcel 47N, North Shore Holdings, LLC. Her lips tightened. Minimum bid, $14,800. Opening bid, do I hear 14.8? I raised my hand. 14.8 from bidder 16. A ripple moved through the crowd. Crane tried to lift his hand, then froze because a bid requires money. And he didn't have any today, not after the court denied their injunction. Do I hear 15? The clerk asked. Silence. 15,000? Still nothing. The woman took half a step forward, then stopped, her hands trembling. She didn't dare bid. If she bid, she acknowledged publicly that the parcel wasn't HOA property. She'd destroy her own narrative. The clerk scanned the crowd slowly. Going once. A murmur rose from the spectators. Going twice. I looked directly at Crane as he exhaled the sound of someone watching a kingdom burn. Sold to bidder 16. It echoed off the courthouse pillars like a shot marking the end of a war. Jennifer exhaled behind me. That's it. You own it. The dock, the shoreline, the access road, all of it. The woman turned away sharply, stumbling over her heels as she pushed through the crowd. Crane followed, pale and shaking. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just stood there, letting the weight of the moment settle. 80 years of my family's history had been contested by people who never owned the land they were fighting over, and now their entire house of cards had collapsed in 5 minutes. The clerk handed me the sale certificate to sign. Congratulations, Mr. Bennett. That's a valuable piece of shore you just saved. I nodded, tucking the papers away. It wasn't about value. He paused. No, he said quietly. I suppose it wasn't. Jennifer walked beside me toward the parking lot. You realize the sheriff will have to enforce this now. The signs, the claims, everything they've been doing, it's all illegal trespass. Good, I said. It's time they learned where their authority actually ends. And where yours begins, she added. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because tomorrow, the sheriff would walk onto that dock, the one they claimed was theirs, and remove every false sign they'd hammered into my family's land. And when he handed those signs back to her, the whole lake would finally see the truth. The HOA was never in charge. Not legally, not morally, not anymore. The fight was entering its final phase, and the next move was theirs, only they no longer had a board to play on. Word of the auction outcome reached Crystal Lake faster than wildfire moving through dry timber. By sunrise the next morning, the entire shoreline knew. The dock the HOA claimed for years was now legally owned by the one man they tried hardest to remove. Me. At 8:02 a.m., Sheriff Daniels' patrol truck rolled down my drive. He stepped out, hat tucked under his arm, expression halfway between tired amusement and quiet satisfaction. "Morning, Marcus," he said. "Got your paperwork right here. County sent it over first thing." He handed me the official deed transfer. My name, parcel 47 Newtons. Shoreline, access road, dock, all of it. "Ready to take a little walk?" he asked. "Been ready for a long time." We headed to the dock together. 2 deputies followed behind, each with evidence bags and a portable drill for removing signage. The lake was calm, the kind of calm that only shows up right before reputations get demolished. On the far end of the dock stood the eyesore I'd been staring at for months. "Private property, WA access only. Trespassers will be fined." The sign that started the whole fight. Sheriff Daniels turned to his deputies. "Remove it." The drill whined. Screws popped. In less than 30 seconds, the sign that justified every false claim, every threat, every late-night sabotage attempt came off the post and into an evidence bag. Daniels lifted it with one hand and looked at me. "You're the only legal owner of this structure now. Any future signs go up only if you put them there." I nodded once. "Let's deliver it," he grinned. "Thought you'd say that." Her house sat on the hill overlooking the lake like a queen surveying a kingdom she thought she controlled. Today, that illusion was over. Daniels didn't knock. He announced himself through the screen door. "County Sheriff, please come outside." She appeared moments later, still in the crimson blazer despite the early hour, auburn hair perfect, red lips set in a tight line. But her eyes were swollen and red. Next to her, Jonathan Crane hovered like a man walking through aftershocks. "We're in the middle of something," she snapped. "You are now," Daniels replied. He held up the sign. "By order of the county, this is being returned to its rightful owner. It was installed illegally on land your HOA never controlled." She froze. "That's impossible. That dock is common property." "No," Daniels said. "It isn't. It belongs to Mr. Bennett. And the road leading to it? Also his." Crane swallowed hard. "Sheriff, there must be some confusion," he said. "The confusion," Daniels cut in, "is between what you wished you owned and what the county actually recorded. The auction yesterday settled the matter permanently." He handed the sign to her. She didn't reach for it. She backed away, shaking her head. "This isn't how it works. He can't just take things." "He didn't take anything," Daniels said. "He bought property your board failed to pay taxes on for 3 years. Her eyes darted to Crane, searching for a denial that didn't come. "You told me it was filed," she hissed. "I thought," Crane muttered. "You thought?" she erupted. "Enough," Daniels said. "There's something else." He opened his folder. "Effective immediately, the county has opened an investigation into unauthorized filings, fraudulent land representations, and targeted harassment complaints. Mr. Bennett has provided documentation and video evidence. We will be interviewing members of the HOA board this week." Her face drained of color. "Investigating us?" she whispered. "Correct," Daniels said. "And, ma'am, this is just a courtesy visit. Next one will be official." He tipped his hat, turned, and walked away. I followed him back toward the driveway, but before I reached the truck, I heard her voice behind me. Quiet, venomous, cracking. "You'll regret this, Bennett." I looked back at her. Not angry, not shaken, just done. "You've spent years pretending law was a game," I said. "Now you're learning how it actually works." I left her standing there with the illegal sign clutched in her hands. That afternoon, the ripple effect around the lake was immediate. and brutal. 3 HOA members resigned within hours of the sheriff's visit. Another released a statement online distancing himself from recent board misconduct. Neighbors messaged me nonstop. "We knew something was wrong. She's been bullying people for years." Finally, someone stood up to them. But the biggest shift happened that night when Jennifer called. "Marcus, the county investigation is already turning up inconsistencies." And Jonathan? He left a digital trail big enough to follow blindfolded. "What kind of trail?" I asked. "Emails, drafted land maps, internal notes, communications with a private investor outlining plans to turn the shoreline into a small resort, something he couldn't do unless he controlled your dock." That didn't surprise me, but what she said next did. One file mentions falsifying HOA meeting minutes to show a board vote approving filings that never happened. That's forgery, and that's criminal. Exactly. I'm preparing a formal complaint for the state property office, and the DA's office already requested the evidence you captured. The stakes had shifted drastically. This was no longer neighbor disputes or HOA bullying. This was fraud, document tampering, real crimes. "Marcus," Jennifer said, "you didn't just defend your land. You exposed a scheme, and it's about to fall apart completely." I stepped out onto the dock as she spoke. My dock. The boards creaked gently underfoot. Familiar, solid. The lake reflected the fading sky, rippling where a pair of ducks drifted across the cove. It hit me, then, the weight of what had finally changed. For months, they pushed me, pressured me, lied, sabotaged, threatened, but they never expected the one outcome they couldn't control. I refused to back down. Jennifer's voice brought me back. "You ready for the last step?" "What's that?" "The part where they lose everything they built on lies." I looked across Crystal Lake, quiet, steady, no longer contested. "I've been ready since the day they called the cops on me," I said. And the truth was, tomorrow would be louder than anything that had come before. Because the legal blow coming for Jonathan Crane and the HOA president, it would echo through the entire lake. The next 72 hours unfolded like a controlled demolition, quiet at first, then unstoppable. It started with Jennifer filing our full packet, trail cam footage, forged meeting minutes, the fraudulent shoreline map, and a timeline of every harassment attempt. She sent copies to the county prosecutor, the state property board, and the DA's office. By noon, the DA called her back. "Tell your client," he said loud enough that I heard through the phone speaker, "we've opened a formal case. Fraudulent land filings, tampering with public records, potential investor deception, and depending on intent, maybe more." The shift was immediate and irreversible. That evening, a county sedan rolled up to Jonathan Crane's house. 2 investigators stepped out, not uniformed officers, but men with clipboards and calm, practiced eyes. They spent an hour inside, then another outside, photographing the HOA office shed, the filing cabinet, and the property markers near the road. The next morning, Crane resigned from the HOA entirely. No letter, no excuses, just a disappearing act that fooled no one. The woman tried to hold the pieces together. She called an emergency board meeting, but only 2 people showed up, both former supporters who now wanted nothing to do with the fallout. Then came the final break. The HOA's bank account was frozen for audit. Every fine they'd ever issued, especially mine, was under review. Their power evaporated overnight. But the last move wasn't mine, or Jennifer's, or even the DA's. The Lake families made it. People who'd been quiet for years finally spoke up. They filed complaints, signed statements, brought out old emails where she had threatened fines over paddleboards, kayaks, even wind chimes. One neighbor admitted she'd paid bogus shoreline maintenance fees for 6 years because she was afraid of retaliation. In 48 hours, the story went from one man defending his dock to an entire community calling out a regime. The county commissioners held an emergency session. I didn't attend, but I watched the recording later. A commissioner read the list of violations out loud. Another asked how an HOA could operate with no legal shoreline rights. A third shut a binder and said flatly, "This organization is dissolved effective immediately. Any remaining actions by this HOA have no legal standing." No shouting, no applause, just the clean break of authority finally snapping in the right direction. She walked out before the meeting ended. That afternoon, I stood on the dock not as someone defending land, but someone who finally, definitively, owned it in every sense of the word. No disputes, no claims, no illusions. And I didn't want it to be another battleground. I wanted it to be what my grandfather intended when he hammered these boards together after coming home from the war. A place for the community. A place for quiet. A place where Crystal Lake belonged to the people who lived beside it, not the ones trying to monetize it. So I made a decision. I walked into the county clerk's office with a short form Clara had prepared. She looked at me over her glasses. "You sure about this, Marcus? Most people would fence it off after what you went through." "I didn't fight the HOA to become them," I said. "Open it." She stamped the form. Just like that, the dock was designated public access, free to use. No fees, no restrictions beyond standard safety rules. And within hours, people came. A dad teaching his son to cast a line. A couple launching kayaks. Two teenagers dangling their feet off the edge where she had once posted a laminated list of prohibited behaviors. The lake breathed again. The last echo came exactly 1 week later. A sheriff's vehicle pulled into my driveway. Daniel stepped out with a slim folder. "Final update," he said. DA filed 3 misdemeanor charges and 1 felony against Jonathan Crane. Fraudulent filings, tampering with public land records, and attempted misrepresentation of ownership. He's negotiating a plea. "And the HOA?" I asked. "Dead," Daniel said simply. "State dissolved it. She's appealing, but she won't get far." She listed properties she didn't own in her filings. He handed me a copy of the dissolution order. "Thought you'd want this for your records." I took it, not for revenge. Foreclosure. Daniels looked out toward the lake. "You know, you didn't just win a fight, Marcus. You changed how things work around here. People won't forget that." "I didn't do it alone," I said. "Law did the heavy lifting. And evidence," he added. "Don't forget that part." I smiled. "I never do." He left, and I walked down to the dock one last time that evening. Fishermen laughed at the far end. Kids ran past with wet shoes. The lake glowed like a sheet of hammered silver. It wasn't my shoreline anymore. It was everyone's. I rested my hand on the railing, smooth, familiar, unchanged despite everything that happened, and whispered quietly, almost to the water itself. They tried to erase our history. So I bought theirs. The wind carried the words away, steady and soft, and for the first time in months, the lake felt exactly as it should. Free, honest, whole. Justice doesn't shout. It settles like water returning to its shore.